Hey guys, thanks for joining me. With the new year, there's going to be a lot of towers falling in the sense of relationships. Now, whenever something falls, there's always something better around the corner. And a lot of times, especially with the new energy and the new year, it's getting us ready for what's to come, which is only wonderful, amazing things. But the whole idea of ending a relationship for another relationship seems just overwhelming and massive. And I've seen this in so many people already. The first 2 months here in the new year that this has popped up already when talking with clients and with friends is just amazing. So I think this is a really good topic. We can talk about the difference between what happens when you meet a soulmate or a twin flame and then you decide you want to leave your relationship, your current relationship. That is going to be the topic of this video, and I hope you guys will join me. What I've been noticing lately is that the chips are falling faster than some people are ready for. But basically, it's putting you into a position of higher vibration, receiving more knowledge. The problem with that is when this happens, when you start awakening or when you're ready for the next level, everything else has to fall so you can start from scratch. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now. And it seems like when these topics come up, it's not like, should I or shouldn't I? And you waver back and forth. No, maybe that was in the past what people used to do. But lately it just seems like everybody has this idea of, oh my goodness, this is my next step. Now I just have to do it. And then they jump into it. And I don't think they realize what that all entails. So, you meet your soulmate, and let's just say soulmate because twin flame relationships are complicated, and it's probably faster and easier to just talk about a soulmate relationship. And I've actually had this experience, so I know a lot about it. You meet the love of your life, so you realize that everything is so bright and so magical, and that this is definitely the next step. There's no questioning it, and this is what I'm seeing. What's happening then is the tower comes down, and the tower comes down fast. And so a lot of problems are popping up. You have this great idea of what's going to happen when you're together, but you don't really realize, what this all entails. And for a lot of people, it's not like just breaking up a relationship, it's breaking up a marriage. And for certain people, it's a lot harder because of religious belief systems. This moment in the awakening of so many is really pushing your boundaries. A lot of times with marriages and relationships, the way society is programmed, it's so monotonous, especially here in the United States. You get married, you go to a job that you probably hate, you have kids, you come home, you hardly spend any family time together, you hardly spend any time with your wife together because you're so exhausted, and you go to bed and you do it all over again. And I think for the majority of people, this is what's happening. And so when all of a sudden a soulmate pops in and you see this amazing possibility of what could be, you're all ready and raring to go. And I think there's just a few things that you probably want to realize or ask yourself first. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that you should do it. There's a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration. A lot of times soulmates come into your life when they need to help you or you need to help them learn lessons. The thing is, when those lessons are done, what's going to happen? Are you guys going to still be wonderful soulmates and everything's going to be happy? And while that seems really great, do you really know your significant other? Do you really know him or her? There's a difference between, and this is something I've learned from personal experience. Just because you know a person doesn't necessarily mean that they know themselves or that you can handle it when they don't accept part of themselves. So, for example, my twin is a completely different person when he opens his heart chakra and listens to his heart, listens to his soul. But he chooses not to do that most of the time. So he is a completely different person than what I know him to be. And I think that it's almost like polar opposites. Because when his heart chakra is open, he likes to have long, meaningful discussions, and like he actually likes to think about things. But when it's closed, he's just like, whatever. I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. If it makes me feel something, I don't want to deal with it. Like that. So you have to really think, like, do you really know this person? Are you willing? If you meet a soulmate or meet a twin flame, are you willing to let that person be? Because you can't change them. You can't change them. And this is where I think a lot of relationships fail. You have to accept them for who they are. And so if you know them through your soul and they don't want to acknowledge it, they are not going to be the type of person that you think they are. Sometimes they'll pop into that person, but a lot of times they won't. And are you willing to accept that? So if you get out of one relationship for another, you need to be aware of what the possibilities are for change. And you need to be willing to accept that, because everything can be amazing when your heart chakras are open and when you're listening to each other. But if one of them decides that they don't want to do that journey with you, it can get pretty rough. And everybody thinks the grass is greener on the other side. And the question is, for you, is it going to be? Number one, do you really know your lover? That would be, I think, a really great question to ask. Make sure that you're still not in the infatuation stage, because a lot of the relationship stories that I'm being told right now, that's my first question that I ask. Are you sure you're not in that infatuation stage? Are you sure that you aren't denying that you're in that infatuation stage? How well do you actually know him or her? And do you think that your life is going to change? Like, is it because you're just absolutely bored of this life that you've chosen? There's no reason why you can't change it and choose a different life, but you need to ask yourself a couple things first. Number two is, if you are married, there's always two sides of the story. So are you being objective about, the other person involved in the relationship, in your marriage? Is there like specific reasons that you feel like you want to leave them versus just saying, I'm done? Like are there specific reasons? I know in my marriage there were very specific reasons. It was a very one-sided marriage. And it wasn't physical abuse, but it was definitely emotional abuse. That can only go on for so long before you're just like, I'm done. I'm just done. I can't do this. Regardless of what happens, I can't. I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be treated equally. So just be objective about your marriage. Like, don't think that it's just one-sided. Look at both sides. Now, number four is, if you have children, you need to think about them first, right? So the people I've been talking to are about like 50-50 as far as who has kids and who doesn't have kids. Obviously, if you don't have kids, it's a lot easier decision. But if you do have kids, that's a lot harder decision to make, And so I've seen a lot of marriages where one spouse decides to leave the other spouse, and they start using the kids as leverage. And that is one of the worst things you can do. If this is happening to you, if the tower is falling and there's greener pastures on the other side and your life is completely changing, you need to think about your kids. You need to think about the kids. And I'm not going to say too much on it, because I get really, really upset about when parents start using the kids as leverage against the other parent. It just frustrates me and makes me so irate. Okay, so number 5. How is this going to affect you? How is this going to affect your family? How is this going to affect your friends? Obviously, you need to do what's right for you, and that's number 1. Like you can't stay in a crappy marriage because your family doesn't believe in divorce, or because you're bullied into staying into it. You just can't do it. There's things you can't do, but you need to kind of think ahead. Like, if you go through this, how is this going to affect things? If your relationship is over, you just need to follow the signs. You need to follow the signs. And I think this is something that is definitely occurring more of. Everybody is, everybody's like, oh my goodness, I met this amazing person, and this person is my soulmate, and we connect on such a deep level that I have never seen before. And I was having problems in my marriage before. Now what do I do? This is what I want to do. Should I do this? And it's amazing, like, what 2017 is going to bring for everybody. So you need to buckle up and hold your hats on, because it's for a lot of you, it's going to be bumpy. Also, I think it's really important that you are able to talk to both parties and be open. Like, obviously, if the signs are there, the signs are there, and if this is what your next step is on your soul journey, this is what your next step is. But you need to open the doors and close the doors and just make sure everything is done correctly to go your separate ways and walk into that new vibration or to that new relationship. Make sure this is something that's really important, and both my husband and I do this often, is that we look back on where we were and the crappy relationships that we were in, and we don't just say, oh, that was just stupid, like I can't believe that ever happened, or I was ever that dumb to get into that relationship. No, what we do is we talk about the lessons that we've learned from our previous relationships, and how thankful we are to have been given a chance to learn these amazing lessons. Like, it might have been hard, and the situation might have been sucky, the relationship might have been crappy, but there was definite good that came out of that, that made us stronger, made us wiser. So I think when this whole thing pops up, make sure to honor that portion of your other relationship as well. Lastly, I think you just need to trust in divine timing. And I have actually a story. I have a story about my own experience about divine timing. Now, my situation was a little different. I was in such a bad place, both physically and mentally, in this marriage, and I was really restricted by my belief system at the time, and I had this really weird, like, I was trying to balance the belief system that I grew up in, the organized religion that I grew up in, and my newfound ideologies of like how life really is. And I was having a real problem. Some of the people that I would confide in also belong to organized religion, and they would say, well, pray to God, and he will help you through, and he will give you strength. Well, I'm not knocking that. I'm definitely not knocking that, but it was like, almost like you decided this, you decided to get married, you should have known, and so now you're in it, and so now you got to figure out how to fix it. Like, you can't divorce because you'd go to hell, type of thing. So I really struggled with that, and I'm pretty sure I had a walk-in, because I would never have been able to do this, to have had the strength to do this, if I hadn't had a walk-in at that moment. And I think a couple other people that I've talked to have also had this happen recently, and that's what has given them the strength to move on from their current relationships into the new ones. And let me just explain what happened, and then I'll explain what a walk-in is. It was just the strangest thing. I was driving around town crying, and it just hit me one day. It just hit me. It was like, I'm done. I don't know how I'm going to tell my family. I hid things so well because I wanted them to think that I was smart in choosing a husband that, I have a good life so they don't have to worry about their daughter. How am I going to tell them that I'm leaving? Right? And so none of that like fazed me. It was almost like how Scarlett O'Hara says, I'm not going to worry about that today, I'll worry about that tomorrow. I called one of my friends and I was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving and I don't know where to go. I can't go to my parents. I have no idea where to go. And he said, well, just pack your bags and come and, figure it out. And so I did. I packed a suitcase. And then the rest of my truck had, at that time, I had all my degrees are like museum and history and stuff. So I was working with museums for like hand sewing and reproducing, archival pieces so they could be displayed. And I did have a hand sewing business on the side too for other history stuff. But I packed my truck full of my business stuff because that was my business. And I left. And I didn't look back. And I thought, like this has been coming to this point for quite a while. And I don't think he can change. I don't think he wants to change. I should have known better. I did not know that he was going to change into this person after we got married. It was just, it was just such a weird experience to have to go through. But I did it. Things weren't always good with my family, but they came around. It all worked out. And then eventually I met my soulmate. Amazing. I love him to death. And it just all fell into place. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy. It was just one hill after another. I just wanted this to go really smooth. And I wasn't ready for the fight. I wasn't ready for the fight. It lasted a long time between we ended up having to go to divorce court and all that stuff, and it lasted like 2 years or something like that. It was just crazy, but it made me so much stronger. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Like my soulmate and I, like, it's even hard to call him a soulmate. It would be a lot easier to call him a twin flame, only that everything is so perfect. Like normal twin flames have problems. But we're such high level soulmates that like it's just magical, in love every day. Like we dance in the kitchen in the mornings while we make coffee. And had I not been strong enough, or had I not had the walk-in to make me strong, Lord knows, I don't know if I'd be here. So what is a walk-in? There are two different ideologies of what a walk-in is. Some people see a walk-in as like a horribly bad thing, like you have this other soul that like walks into your body and subdues your soul, and like they look at it like it's a completely different person that overtakes you, type of thing. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is what I believe a walk-in to be, and that is just a fragment or a fraction of your higher self, where you make a contract with your higher self. And there comes a point where you're kind of like, okay, so if I can't do this myself, because I have to get on with my journey and my life path, and I have to get from point A to point B, so if I can't do this, I'm gonna need you to step in and like kick my butt in gear. And by then I should have learned my lessons and I should be good to go, but I just need to get out. And I may not be strong enough at that time. So, higher self, if you could have a soul fractal of me come in and like just kick my butt in gear, that would be awesome. And so to me, that's what a soul fractal is. It's another portion of you, that makes a contract to come in and help. When I had my experience, it was just so out of the blue that I was just done. I was just fed up, and I was like, I'm worth so much more than this. I don't deserve to be treated like this. No one would deserve to be treated like this. You enter a marriage because you want to grow together, and you want to love together, and you want to experience life together. Not so you can just keep me at home and tell me what to do and to not grow with me, and to give me rules that I have to abide by. And that's not it. I'm not your prisoner, you know, like I'm your wife. When it happened, it was just such a whirlwind. Like it was kind of blurry, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you kind of come to and you're like, whoa, that was amazing. That needed to happen, and I had the courage to do that. And you know, that's a really great experience for me that I can share with you. When it's time, it's time. You know, sometimes it's not time. And a lot of people are waking up, and a lot of people are realizing that it's time to move on. And I'm a firm believer that people come into your life, you know, friends, you know, lovers, they come into your life to teach you a lesson. So I think we're gonna just wrap it up. And in 2017, as things get rocking and rolling, you know, your life may take a drastic change, but you know, before you can rebuild, your whole world comes crashing down. So when it comes that time to take that big step, you know, if a walk-in happens to help you through it, all the better. But just know what you're getting into. Just be vigilant, and make sure, as we talked about in the beginning, to really answer your questions. You know, be honest with yourself as to why you want to do this. You know, love and light to everybody, and thanks for joining us.